It's me, James, and in this video I'm kicking off the first installment of a new series that has been requested by a viewer on card spreads, so stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this video. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome, and if you're a returning viewer and visitor, I'd like to say welcome back. As I said in the teaser of this video, this is going to be the kickoff for a new ongoing series that is going to be focusing on card spreads. And as I also said in the teaser, this comes as a viewer request. So I'm going to give the viewer a shout out. Her name is Barbara, and Barbara sent me a comment through a recent video asking me if I would be willing to share some card spreads, and she cited two things about those card spreads. She wanted them to be simple and ones that could be used on a daily basis. So that is going to be what I try and focus on throughout this video series. And so first up, we're going to be focusing on a 3-card spread that I use in both my personal work and in my work with clients. It is one of my go-to spreads, so I thought this would be a wonderful first spread to share with Barbara and whoever else lands on this video, in the hopes that it's going to be helpful and beneficial. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get to the table. I'm going to show you the deck that I'm going to be working with. It's one of my own personal decks, as well as the spread itself, and then we're going to segue into a card reading example. So let's get to the table now. And here we are with the deck on the table, and as I said in the opening, I'm going to be working with my deck, the Intuitive Cartomancy deck. So this is the tin that it comes in, and the deck is on this side, so I'm going to move the tin to one side, and now I'm going to show you the layout for today's spread. And so we are working with a spread that I call the Situation, Guidance, and Outcome spread. It consists of 3 cards, and it's very simple. The first card here on the left is going to represent the situation, right? Middle card is going to represent any guidance or advice regarding the situation. And then the last card, card 3 on the right, is going to represent a possible outcome, right? It could be like as a follow-up to the second card, like if you were to take the advice, this is the most likely or possible outcome, right? So those are the 3 cards, very easy. Now there's 2 ways that you could work with this spread. Going with the request of Barbara, this could be a daily spread that you use, and the first card would represent a possible situation that could unfold depending on when you do the reading, of course. I tend to do my readings at the beginning of the day, so for me this would be a situation that could unfold at the beginning of the day, or an event throughout the day, or some course of the day, over the course of the day I should say. Then that could be a situation that could take place. Then if this were to happen, this would be the guidance as to what I either need to know or do regarding the situation. And then if I were to take the advice, card 2, then card 3 would be the most likely outcome or result. Now that would be if you use it as a daily spread or layout. Now I use it in the context of answering specific questions, which is how I'm going to approach it here. So the first card again would be the situation. Regarding the question, what does this card have to say about the situation or the question at hand? Then card 2 would be, what is the guidance or advice being offered regarding the situation, in terms of either what somebody needs to know or do regarding the situation. And then card 3 again would be the most likely outcome or result. So those are the 3 cards, and like I said, in this particular video I'm going to read it in the second context, and I'm going to use Barbara's question as context. And so we are back with the deck on the table once again, and as I said in the previous segment, I'm going to be doing the Situation, Guidance, and Outcome spread, focusing on Barbara's question or request for this video series. And so I'm going to ask the cards to offer us some guidance or advice for Barbara regarding her request for simple daily card spread. So basically, I'm asking the cards to give Barbara some insight as to what she could do in terms of a practice of working with cards and card spreads in particular on a daily basis. Okay, so that's the question. So I'm going to go ahead and take the deck in hand, and we're going to shuffle the cards, and we're going to focus on the question as we shuffle. So I tend to like to shuffle the cards 5 times, and for me, in my practice, each shuffle is in accordance to one of the 5 elements, and that would be earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. So I'm going to shuffle one more time. And there were some cards that stuck out there. Put those back in. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck away from me, because when I'm reading with situations that have to do with other people, I tend to cut the cards away from me. Now I'm going to go ahead and fan out the cards. So you'll see the fan at the top there. And what I'm doing now is I'm looking at the fan for 3 cards that are getting my attention. All right, so I've picked the 3 cards. I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up, and I'm going to put that to one side. Okay, so now we have the 3 cards in the order that they were chosen from the fan. Okay, so now remember, we have situation, guidance, outcome. So now the question was, what does Barbara need to know or do or consider regarding incorporating daily spreads into her card reading practice? Okay, so the first card is the situation, so let's turn that over. And if you're new to seeing this deck, what I did was when I designed it, the playing card that it's referring to is in an insert either at the bottom or the top of the card, and then the surrounding card space is taken up with an image or an illustration, right? So it gives it a playing card and an oracle card kind of feel, and the reason for it is because some viewers in my playing card Cartomancy series talked about the idea of memorization, and that was actually the inspiration for this deck. Is like it helps people not feeling like they have to be required to memorize card meanings, because they could kind of maybe riff on the image in more of an intuitive way, right? So here we have a woman. This is the Queen of Clubs. So I have a woman here, and she is standing against a reflective surface, and this was intentional with the image, because for me, clubs is a suit that can represent the public and something social, right? So here we have a woman who may be reflecting on her image, right? Because there's a reflection of her image there. So it could just be for Barbara, if I go with the situation, is that this card may be suggesting to me is how can the practice of daily spreads in her card reading practice, which whatever system that she uses at any given moment, because I don't know the specifics of the systems that she's working with, right? So whatever system that she uses, it's about how is the incorporation of card spreads a reflection of herself and her practice as it is going forward, right? Because this is a woman who is business minded. The suit of clubs is, for me, can represent work or business. So she looks like a businesswoman, right? But if we take that part of it and maybe tweak or modify that, it could just be a matter of like what level of work or effort is Barbara willing to put into her card reading practice, and especially with the idea of card spreads. Now, I look at her face and she looks pretty serious, right? So for me, there's this idea about being serious or determined, right? So there could be a matter of Barbara being really serious and determined to work card spreads into her practice. But she wants to start off with the idea of something simple and basic, and that may be helpful in her keeping the commitment into working with the cards every day, right? So that's what I would see here with the Queen of Clubs and the idea of the situation that Barbara. Now, it could also be that the Queen of Clubs is an actual stand-in for Barbara, right? Because here we have a female card, right? So it could be like the Queen of Clubs here is actually a stand-in for Barbara. And when I say stand-in, it means like it's a representation for Barbara, right? Okay, so there's a couple of ways of reading that, but I'm going to go with the idea that she is really serious about doing the work and incorporating card spreads into her practice, right? But the cards are saying too, like, how can that be allow that to be a reflection of her practice, right? Okay, so now the middle card would be the guidance or advice. So let's take a look at that. And here we have the 10 of clubs. Okay, so the 10 of clubs is, again, we have a pattern here with the suit of clubs. So now, again, clubs can represent work or business. So I'm going to read it as, you know, Barbara putting in the work, the effort into incorporating the card spreads into her practice, right? And here we have a man who's hard at work, right? He's working in his space. So for me, this could be about putting in a lot of work, a lot of effort, right? But also, too, the 10 of clubs, the number 10, is about success. So they're saying there's a possibility of being successful in that work or effort. But the cards are saying, Barbara, we don't want to kid you. It's going to be a lot of work or effort on your part, right? And so, you know, sticking with that. You know, but she will make progress if she sticks to it and puts in the work and the effort, right? So now it could be, I'm looking at the image now. That was for me reading the card insert. But if I look at the image, I'm noticing the paper in his hand, right? So it looks like he's making something and he's going according to the plan in his hand, right? So it could just be a matter of Barbara coming up with a plan and then having her work or her actions, clubs being the suit of actions, going in alignment with the plan, right? It could also be, you know, with the paper, it could just be either designing or writing down or putting to paper card spreads that work for her. Notice what I said there, that work for her, right? She won't know the spreads that work for her until she actually works the spreads, right? So that's what I'm seeing here. So I'm seeing that Barbara is being encouraged here with this card to put in the work, right? So now let's see what the last card is. This would be the most likely outcome or possible outcome. Okay, so here we have the Jack of Diamonds. So first thing I will say is that a card from the suit of diamonds following two clubs cards, meaning that the work or effort being put in pays off, because diamonds as a suit can represent rewards or payoffs, especially when they come after clubs, right? So she will get some reward, she will get some payoff, she will get some value out of putting in the work, right? Now, the Jack is at a learning stage of development. If you go with the idea that here on the other side we have the Queen, right? So in terms of hierarchy, it goes Jack, Queen, and King, right? So the Jack would be at the learning stage of development, whereas on the other side of that spectrum is the King represents mastery, right? So it could just be a matter of she's going to be learning, right? She's going to be learning the value of putting in the work of incorporating spreads into her card reading practice, right? So just she needs to consider herself a student, right? And doing the work, right? Because the Jack, if I go with the directional cue, is looking this way, right? So the Jack would actually technically be looking at the 10 of clubs, right? So that's important. So I mentioned the Jack looking at the 10 of clubs. So clubs from an emotional outlook, I call that the emotional outlook when a card is facing another card. So the suit of clubs from an emotional outlook would be things like frustration and irritation, right? So it could just be a matter of her needing to keep in mind that she may have moments of frustration as she's working the cards and the card spreads into her practice, but for her to stick with the work, right? Continue to do it. Don't give up, right? Now the image. The image is of a spirit or psychic medium, because for me, the Jack of Clubs can represent a person who has the ability to contact the spirit world, and Jacks for me represent news or communication, or being the messenger. So this would be the spiritual messenger. And so I went with the image of a psychic medium for that. Now, in the image, you may notice that in front of her, she's doing a seance. So she's connected with two other people, right? And so, but in front of her are cards, playing cards, yeah? So it could just be a matter of, again, maybe playing with the cards. Notice what I said there, playing with the cards. And when I say that, it's about, like, experimenting with the cards, but also keeping it light, keeping it fun, not making it so heavy so it feels like work, right? I've been reading cards for a long time, and I still come to them with a sense of play, which means, like, I'm going to be childlike because jacks can represent children. I'm going to have a childlike attitude or approach to the cards, right? I'm going to have a sense of awe and wonder, and not feeling like it's a chore, it's a duty, it's an obligation, because then you're feeling like I'm going to have to slug through it. None of that, right? It's about it of, like, taking a look at your energy, because diamonds are about energy. But what I love about it here is, like, we have the cards on the table in front of us, and maybe just kind of meditating on the cards, because the woman's eyes are closed in the image, so maybe tuning in on the cards. So maybe laying out the cards and then stepping away from them, meditating on them, that kind of thing, to see if there's anything that comes to her in the moments when she's away from the cards, that kind of thing. Or maybe even, like, leaving the cards out, walking out of the room, coming back and looking at them at a later point in time, things that I know that back in the day when I used to do my card readings, I would leave the cards out on my table or on my altar, or whatever space I was using in the moment, leave them out so when I came back into the room I could see them first thing, that kind of thing. But in the end, I think she would get some value from doing the work, right? So that is how I would look at these three cards. Again, this has been the situation, guidance, and outcome spread. And so, Barbara, if you're watching, I hope you got some value out of this particular spread and layout. And I will be back in this space at a later point in time with some more spread or layout ideas. So if you have some ideas or comments, just drop them in the comment section below. I would love to read them. And I will see you in a later video, as I said before. So this is James Mitchell signing out. Take care and have a wonderful day.